It sucks because this is a harsh reality that I have to kind of face. But there were red flags from the beginning. But I, like so many other people, hope that you could over overwrite some behavioral patterns that are hardwired. And I'm a firm believer that you can. It's always going to be difficult when there's negative people or the actors of the negative behavior. Like if you were in substance abuse and the same people that you were abusing with, if they're still abusing and you break away and you go back, I mean, the
600
likelihood
feet, turn left onto North F. Bennett Road.
of you going back and relapsing, I mean, you're really setting the deck against you. So before, when I met my spouse, the whole thing about the perjury in courtroom 6, there's been perjury in courtroom 3, and then there was the perjury in courtroom 6, which I'm gonna have to put the proof here, read the evidence, all that stuff. But on, I think it was May the 1st, we had that court hearing. I hadn't been informed about what was going on in courtroom 6 until just days before the hearing, and surely that was part of their strategy, was to let the clock run down. Gregory Winter, these are the kind of tactics that he likes to use. And it's ironic because if you don't, he'll complain about time frame and like when he's received the documentation on the 3rd, which is within the time frame allotted for his notice of unavailability, but then he went and tried to dig up a new rule and say, oh well, electronic service has to have an additional 2 days notification, which so then try to press the goalposts out further so that it would be a violation, only to accommodate what he's trying to achieve, which is delay and use gamesmanship. So they didn't tell me until days before. So it's ironic to hear him complain about anything later on, but we'll get to that. May the 1st, we had a hearing, and again, they kept trying to say, oh no, he shouldn't be allowed to be adjoined to this because it's not going to cause no financial harm. Anybody who thinks they're going to go into a divorce proceeding without an attorney and not be financially harmed is wrong. Even if you do a needs-based attorney's fees where you're paying somebody and you're still not able to go to work because you have to go do all the footwork and you're still having to pay for the needs-based portion of that. It's not free. Needs-based attorneys is not free. It's still costly. And if you don't have an attorney and you're trying to negotiate with an attorney, you're going to get the short end of the stick more likely than not on that. So their position and premise about me not being allowed an annulment when I should have been, because this person committed adultery. When I met her, she was with my friend, this guy, Enrique Hernandez. That's how I met her. She was with him. I made a comment on Facebook because she was kind of jazzing him about not being gangster enough, that she hadn't seen anything. And I had made a comment because it was around that time that one girl she had just been absolved or acquitted on that thing. They found her daughter's body and everything. And I just said something, but it was about the lady that was in the news, and she took offense to it and said, you don't even know me and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'm not even talking about you. So I inboxed her and let her know that, hey, I wasn't even talking about you. I was talking about the lady in the news and whatever. It struck up a conversation, but her and I kind of started talking while she was with him. So that, being said, some people may say, well, your relationship started off, I guess you could say underhandedly, on the sneak. I don't know. She told me that like they weren't an item. He felt more of what they were than what she felt, supposedly. Now, of course, that's what she does. She always downplays her part in it. But dude lived at home with his mom. He's in his late 30s, had a kid, wasn't working, wasn't nothing. And, but, he and I knew each other. We grew up together. And so he would tell me everything, that he was smashing her out in the back of her car, and she would roll up and he would be digging around in the backseat of the car, and it's like, okay, whatever. And she didn't know that dude caught chlamydia like 6 times. I was like, damn, bro. He was telling me, and I was like, okay, cool. That's pretty high risk behavior. You might want to learn after the second or third time you catch that thing, but whatever, But that's just the kind of person that she's attracted to. And but for whatever reason, we hit it off and we were talking. And then not long thereafter, I was in Sonoma, California, she was in San Diego. I think he stopped smashing, I don't know. But then we start hooked up. And not long thereafter, she found out that she was pregnant by Enrique Hernandez. So I made the decision. I told her straight out, like, yo, I'll stay with you. You can keep the baby. I'll help you raise him, or her, whatever it's going to be. You make the decision. I wasn't going to have no hand in the demise of somebody else's child. And I really liked her, man. I really loved her. She made a really good impression on me, which narcissists do. They really trick you in the beginning to make you think that they are who they say they are, and that they're the victim in all these circumstances, and it pulls at your heartstrings. But she made the decision to terminate the pregnancy. And so on May the 3rd, they went into court in courtroom 6, and her attorney, on May the 1st, he told the judge that he was going to be no party to this other issue. In the declaration or whatever documentation I received, she said at the advice of her attorney, which was around February, that they started this whole process on the sneak to try to get her an annulment, to try to cut me off the pass for my annulment, because it's ad initio. It goes back to the beginning. And so that was their strategy. And then when I filed for an annulment, then they're like, oh shit, we gotta let them know, I guess. And maybe that's the reason why they let me know. And then I filed an adjoinder, an emergency adjoinder, paid like $500 to be adjoined to that action. And they were trying to fight it. And so they showed up at court. He says he wasn't going to represent on the 1st. On the 5th, he shows up and he does a supposed surprise representation for her and tries to argue, oh, he forced her to marry her because he was pregnant. She wasn't pregnant with my kid, man. She was pregnant by my friend. What are you talking about? I was like, wow, that's how crazy they are. So I have the picture of me proposing to her and all that I flew her up. We picked her up in a limo in San Francisco, went and got a moving truck in Sonoma, packed up our stuff, and drove down and stopped in Lancaster, where it was all set up for me to propose. She was not pregnant there. She had already done the abortion for the child of my friend. And I was moving down to San Diego because she couldn't move up to Sonoma because she was trying to finish that PC 1000 program for the crimes that her and Marvin Mace committed. She was granted a PC 1000 where she pled guilty because she committed these crimes. She was walking into Mexico and stuffing her vagina full of heroin and walking it back into America, and her and Marvin Mace were selling them to drug addicts. I think dude had a problem with heroin. I know he had a problem with meth. And then he was subsequently arrested when he accidentally shot himself, but she had dumped her kid off on those people who eventually seized guardianship so that she could go do all these things, the drinking and driving, the selling the heroin and meth. And then when Cheddar Bob Marvin Mace was showing off a gun, he shoots himself, she calls an ambulance, they're both arrested and charged. So she pled guilty, deferred entry of judgment, has to do a PC 1000. So her attorney will always try to be like, what was the disposition of that? The disposition was she pled guilty. And when you plead guilty as a plea bargain, you go do this stuff, and then they drop the case, but only if you successfully complete those things. So it's not like it was, oh, there's not enough evidence, we think that she's innocent. No, she pled guilty. She pled guilty. She admitted to the crimes. She got a slap on the wrist. Marvin Mace gets sent to prison for 5 years to go do the real time for the crimes that both he and her committed. So they were saying in their literature to the court that Marvin Mace ain't going to show up, that he's been served, and that they know he's not going to show up, essentially. They said the same thing on the 3rd, and they said, oh, well, then we don't need to have him served before the 5th, which was going to be the hearing where not the referee, but the commissioner would decide the outcome of this matter. And also decide whether I would be adjoined to it. So in that time between the 3rd and the 5th, I was able to do a declaration and submit all this evidence, and I did not have to send it to Marvin Mace because everybody agreed, her attorney and her and the judge, that he wasn't going to show up. But guess who showed up on the 5th when I showed up? And when the judge was allowed me to be adjoined, they put Marvin Mace under oath, Jessica under oath, myself, and Marvin Mace did his very best to sit there and try to lie, very specific lies that would try to negate the investigation is being conducted by Human Resources, the Napa County supervisors, into the issues with her supervisor and the director of Child Welfare Services when all this was brought about in 2021. Very specific lies, and I'm going to get into that. He tried to say he didn't know where his wife was. Look at the newspaper article. He tried to say that him and Jessica weren't actively doing this together. That's a bullshit lie, because he was having her walk up. He was having a woman that had a kid that needed her, had epilepsy, suffering over there, didn't know where his mom was, walk into fucking Mexico and stuff her vagina with heroin and walk it back into America. She could have been arrested. She could have been killed if the thing would have busted. So, the mindset of her and the bitch ass dude that Marvin Mace is, Cheddar Bob, that would send a mother into Mexico to do that selfishly. But yet in court, he tried to say he's a man that stands on his own 2 feet while receiving summons at his mother and dad's house, which would kind of give the indication that maybe he's still living at home with his mom and dad in his mid-40s. So I don't see how that's a man standing on his own 2 feet. And he sure wasn't standing on his own 2 feet when he sent the respondent in my matter down into Mexico to stuff her vagina full of heroin and bring it into the States so that they could both sell it to people who were suffering from addiction. And then when they were arrested, he sent her the notice of asset forfeiture from the Drug Enforcement Administration. He said some choice words, which I read to the judge, to refute the lies that he was trying to tell. And then while she was in custody, she tried to claim the money. She said very specifically, my money. My money. And that's consistent with what she had told me when she explained to me that she was walking down to Mexico and stuffing her vagina with heroin, because she was kind of
Take the next left toward North F. Bennett Road, then turn left onto North F. Bennett Road.
She was kind of braggadocious about the money that she made and that it was her money and that she was buying this and she was buying that. And I was like, dang, well, what about your son? And she's, oh, I couldn't have him around that stuff. Why not just do the behavior? Or maybe, I don't know, pick a guy that's not a fugitive that was in your custody before that you were supposed to prevent from doing these very same crimes, yet you're out doing them with him. So when I read when she moved out this January and I found all this literature with her in custody, demanding to the DEA, well, requesting to the sheriffs that she be able to demand to the DEA to get what she said, her money. She was booked in. She was unemployed on her booking sheet. So all this stuff I presented to the judge when they tried to lie about it, and refuted that. So it's just the audacity of how far they're willing to go. Her and her enablers, all her former co-workers and the ones that still work at News, which is Napa Empowering Women's Services, to bring her friend Michelle, who ripped us off, and I got the text messages from that, to try to have that broad come in there and try to lie to the judge and say that I threatened the judge and the court. They didn't even check to see who I was talking to on the phone, which that's another awkward, interesting one. If somebody threatened a judge and they're on the phone for 14 or 15 minutes, I'm sure you would pull out your phone and record it or report it to the police. I don't know, but they didn't do that. And then they had her try to come in and facilitate the fraud. They had Marvin Mace try to come in and facilitate a fraud. There's nothing. Jessica Lopez has been committing perjury here. And it's just, there's nothing that they won't do in this endeavor for her to try to get her way. She lied about the whole thing about Mexico, and it's just this whole victim stance, and it's just crazy. So all I asked for was enough with the drunkenness and the alcoholism and the exposure in front of my son. And that was just too much. It was either I accept that and roll with it or lose everything. So I had to make the decision. It's a costly one. It's a painful one. But, at least down the road, if anything happens with my son, if he becomes an alcoholic and everything, I don't want to wait that long to wait till he's wrapped up in that and then hope for a good outcome despite all the pitfalls that may lay before him. I'm going to try to prevent it now while he's 10 years old, not wait till he's 16, 17, 20 and suffering from alcoholism.